Casimir Pierre Périer was a prominent French banker, mine owner, political leader and statesman. In business, through his bank in Paris and ownership of the Anzin coal co. in the department of Nord, he contributed significantly to the economic development of France in the early stages of industrialization. In politics, he was a leading liberal member of the Chamber of Deputies throughout the Bourbon Restoration and president of the Chamber at the outset of the July Revolution of 1830. He led the moderate Liberal Party of Order in support of the constitutional monarchy of Louis Philippe. He became president of the Council of Ministers and Minister of Interior in the spring of 1831. Although his ministry was brief, his strong government succeeded in restoring order at home and keeping peace abroad. He fell victim to the cholera epidemic in France in 1832. Family and business career. Born in Grenoble, Casimir Pierre was the fourth of the 8 sons of my lord Claude Nicolas Perier, the rich merchant, manufacturer and banker who opened his Château de Vizille to the famous meeting of the estates of Dauphiné foreshadowing the French Revolution. His mother was the former Marie-Charlotte Pascal, the daughter of a prominent linens manufacturer at nearby Voiron. Both his father and grandfather made their fortunes in the commerce of canvas and linen cloths. Claude added the manufacture of printed cotton cloths at the Château de Vizille, which he purchased in 1780 from Gabriel Louis de Neufville, Duc de Villeroy. The Revolution and Napoleon opened up new opportunities for families of the wealthy bourgeoisie Grenoblois, such as the Periers. Claude Perier shifted the center of his business affairs to Paris, where he took up residence beginning in 1794 and mingled with leading French financiers. In 1795 he invested in and became a director of the largest coal mining company in northern France, the Anzin Company. In 1796 he helped to found a major investment bank in Paris, the Caisse des Comptes Courants, and in 1799, shortly after Napoleon's coup d'état of Brumaire, he became one of the founders and first directors of the famous Bank of France. Claude Perier died on February 6, 1801, leaving his remarkably large family of 10 children to share his enormous estate valued at 5,800,000 francs. Casimir, who was 24 years old at the time, inherited shares in the Anzin Company, land at Grenoble, and in common with his brother Cyprien, the property in Paris on the Rue Saint-Honoré. He had little experience in business or banking. His father had anticipated that the 3 eldest brothers, Augustin, Alexandre and Cyprien, would carry on the family businesses at Grenoble, Vizille. Casimir himself gave no clear indication of a specific career choice. He was intelligent, energetic, handsome and eager to succeed, but he had spent his life mostly as a student and received a church school and Jesuit tutor classical education. During service with the army in Italy, 1799 to 1800, he began to consider a military career, but his father's death and legacy, the lure of Paris, and his close friendship with his older brother Cyprien took him in a much different direction. The 2 brothers, Casimir and Cyprien, founded a bank in Paris, located at No. 8 Place Vendôme until 1809, and after that year at No. 27 Rue Neuve du Luxembourg. Henry Fleury and William Sabatier, who were former associates with the father at the Bank of France and the Anzin Company, respectively, helped to get the bank started. The youngest Perier brother, Joseph, joined the bank in 1822, approximately 1 year after the death of Cyprien. The affairs of the older Perier Bank at Grenoble were by then administered mainly by another younger brother, Alphonse, the Banco of Perier Frères in Paris, which played a significant and leading role in the early stages of the Industrial Revolution in France. Would be near the peak of its success in the year 1820s, numbering importantly by then among a small and select group of private banking houses known collectively as La Haute Banque Parisienne. Scipien became a regent of the Bank of France in 1818, Casimir in 1820. They both became members of the influential Chamber of Commerce of Paris. The two most important clients of the Perier Bank were the Anzin Coal Company and the Perier-owned iron foundry and workshops in Paris at Charlotte. The founder-owner of the Charlotte firm, Jacques-Constantin Perier, who was not related to the Paris bankers, was well known for having brought the Watt steam engine to France. Famously, he used a Watt engine at Charlotte to provide Paris with water pumped from the Seine. In 1802 he supplied the Anzin Company with 20 of his engines for winding and drainage at the mines. Casimir and Scipien Perier purchased the Charlotte firm in 1818 and used its workshops to upgrade Anzin with more efficient Cornish high-pressure engines patented in France by Arthur Wolff. Charlotte was an important part of the most notable entrepreneurial achievement of the periods during the Restoration, namely, the renovation, managerial reorganization and business expansion of Anzin. The Anzin Coal Company, which was established in 1757 as a closely held, family-owned firm managed by a self-perpetuating board of 6 directors, fell on hard times during the Revolution until rescued in 1795 by heavy investments from wealthy representatives of la grande bourgeoisie. Thus Claude Perier became a director of the company. The firm did reasonably well after 1795, although most of the new outsiders who joined the founding families looked on Anzin as simply one of many investments. Not to Casimir and Scipien Perier, who determined to become active owner-directors for purposes of renovating and re-energizing the company for increased production and maximization of profits. The Perier Bank in Paris became the company bank, regulating Anzin's accounts and contracts and supervising its large reserve funds. The brothers gradually took over making company policies. They were a good team. Scipien had the broad knowledge of the science and technology of the times. Casimir acted as the determined, driving force for innovation and risk-taking as opposed to the old ways and too cautious decision-making. He was Anzin's homme fortis during the rejuvenation of the company in the 1820s. His much-quoted 1826 General Report on Anzin Company Affairs illustrated the thoroughness of his knowledge of his firm's needs and potential. One measure of success during the Restoration was that output of coal at the mines increased from 250,000 metric tons in 1816 to 509,000 tons in 1830. In association with other prominent bankers and business leaders, the Periers also engaged in the establishment of new financial institutions of the Restoration. Thus in 1818 Casimir and Scipien were among the founder directors of the first French savings bank, the Caisse d'Épargne de Prévoyance de Paris. Besides the Perier Bank, other investors included Jacques Lafitte and the banks of Lefebvre, Pillet, Will, and Cottier. The same 5 banking houses helped back the organization during 1816–20 of an important early insurance company, the Compagnie Royale d'Assurances, and in 1823 they would take part in the Compagnie des Quatre Canaux, a joint stock company for loans to the government to improve the canal system in northern France. Perhaps the best example of the Perier Bank's involvement in innovative financial ventures during the Restoration was the case of the Ilstad Société Commanditaire de l'Industrie, conceived in 1825 mainly by Jacques Lafitte, its prospective president. This joint stock company, capitalized at 100 million francs, was intended to help remedy the growing need in France for increased investment capital for large-scale projects in areas such as mining, metallurgy, canal construction and land development. It had the support of the haute banque and foreign banking houses. Casimir Pierre and William Turneau, France's leading woolens manufacturer, were its prospective vice presidents. But in the end, unfortunately, the conservative Villèle ministry under Charles X refused to authorize the establishment of the commanditaire. Casimir Pierre's policy as a banker was to spread his capital investment over a wide range of characteristic early 19th century business enterprise. He engaged as well in almost continuous investment in land and real estate, calculated most recently at about 15% of his total investments during 1815 to 30. Most notable were his purchases of highly valued properties on the Rue Neuve du Luxembourg, the Rue Saint-Honoré and the Champs-Élysées, a summer residence in the Bois de Boulogne, the Château Saint-Pierre in Normandy, near Rouen, and the parkland and ruins of the Château Pont-sur-Seine, a property owned previously by Napoleon that was destroyed by invading armies in 1814. Casimir's largest investment in Paris real estate during the Restoration was made in 1829–30 when he agreed to pay 744,600 francs for properties on the Rue Saint-Honoré owned by Francis Egerton, Duke of Bridgewater. By the time of the Revolution of 1830, Casimir Perier was one of the richest men in Paris. At the age of 55 in 1832, when he died of cholera, his estate was estimated at close to 14 million francs. Both Casimir and Scipien Perier valued education and believed strongly in the advancement of science and technology. They supported Joseph d'Enguerrand's Société pour l'amélioration de l'enseignement élémentaire and they arranged at Anzin for night school instruction for workers using courses designed by Charles Dupin. In Paris, they supported the practical education programs provided by the École Spéciale de Commerce, founded in 1816, and the École Centrale des Arts et Manufactures established in 1828. After Casimir was elected to the Chamber of Deputies in 1817, he would vote to protect the budgets of the Conservatory of Arts and Sciences and trade schools in the departments. Casimir Pierre's wide-ranging business interests and investments helped to explain his opposition in the Chamber of Deputies to financial policies of Restoration ministries. In 1817, he opposed the policy of the Richelieu ministry for raising loans to pay the war indemnity demanded by the Allied coalition after Napoleon's final defeat. In the 1820s, he was a leader in debates against the policies of the Villèle ministry for financing canal construction and for indemnifying the nobility for lands confiscated during the Revolution. Perier entered the Chamber of Deputies for Paris in 1817, taking his seat in the left centre with the moderate opposition, and making his first speech in defense of the freedom of the press. Re-elected for Paris in 1822 and 1824, and in 1827 for Paris and for Troyes, he elected to represent Troyes, and sat for that constituency until his death. Pierre's violence in debate was not associated with any disloyalty to the Bourbon Restoration, and he held resolutely aloof from the Republican conspiracies and intrigues which prepared the way for the Revolution of 1830. Under the Martignac ministry, there was some prospect of a reconciliation with the court, and, in January 1829, he was nominated a candidate for the presidency of the Chamber, but in August, with the elevation to power of Jules, Prince de Polignac, the truce ceased, and on 15 March 1830, Perier was one of the 221 deputies who repudiated the ordinances put forward by Charles X. Averse by instinct and by interest to popular revolution, Perier nevertheless sat on the Provisory Commission of Five at the Hôtel de Ville during the Three Glorious Days of July 1830, but he refused to sign the declaration of Charles X's dethronement. Perier reluctantly recognized in the government of Louis Philippe's constitutional monarchy the only alternative to the continuance of the revolution, but he was no favorite with the new king, whom he scorned for his trucking with the Paris mob. He became president of the Chamber of Deputies, and sat for a few months in the cabinet, though without a portfolio. President of the Council. During the first years of the July monarchy of Louis Philippe, following the fall of the weak and discredited ministry of Jacques Lafitte, Perier, who had drifted more and more to the right, was summoned to power, and, in the short space of a year, he more or less restored civic order in France and re-established her credit in Europe. Paris was in a constant state of disturbance from March to September, and was only held in check by the Premier's determination. The Canut revolt at Lyon was suppressed after hard fighting, and at Grenoble, in face of the quarrels between the military and the inhabitants, Perier declined to make any concession to the townsfolk. For Perier, the revolution of 1830 was not the beginning of greater things to come. It was the end of the revolution of 1789. As he said to Odilon Barrett of Lafitte's party of movement, "No, monsieur, there has not been a revolution, only a change in the head of state." As a minister, Perier refused to be dragged into armed intervention in favor of the revolutionary government of Warsaw, but his policy of peace did not exclude energetic demonstrations in support of French interests. He constituted France the protector of Belgium by the prompt expedition of the Army of the North against the Dutch in August 1831. French influence in Italy was asserted by the audacious occupation of Ancona, and the refusal of compensation for injuries to French residents by the Portuguese government was followed by a naval demonstration at Lisbon. Perier had undertaken the premiership with many forebodings, and overwork and anxiety prepared the way for disease. In the spring of 1832, during the cholera outbreak in Paris, he visited the hospitals in company with Prince Ferdinand Philippe, Duke of Orléans. He fell ill the next day of a violent fever, and died 6 weeks later. Casimir Pierre married Marie-Pauline Loyer, the daughter of Laurent Pathus Loyer, an old regime magistrate of Lyon who was a victim of the terror during the Revolution. There were 2 sons, Auguste Casimir Perier, deputy for Seine and Aube, and Charles-Paul Perier, deputy and senator for Seine-Inférieure. Auguste Casimir's son, Jean Casimir Perier, was elected president of the Third Republic in 1894.